Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to another episode of Quran in English. My name is Ahmed, and I am happy to take you on through a new chapter of the Quran, Surah An-Nahl, which means the chapter of bees, of the bees. Yeah, because Nahla is singular bee, and then Nahl is plural bees. And An-Nahl means the bees, the chapter of the bees. Now, the reason why I'm also excited to read the specific chapter is because I believe this is one of the ways to find out that the Quran is miraculous, because it contains in it some wonders about how bees work. I remember my mom sent me a video on it a long time ago, about how miraculous it was. Ironically, she sent me a video of I want to say, there's no issue. There's a specific white lady that talks about the miracles of the Quran, and it's pretty funny that my Middle Eastern mother is sending me a white lady talking about the Quran. But it's kind of like, that's the beauty of it, is that when you see people outside of your culture recognizing that there is truth in this, it's easier to say that, oh, a Muslim believes this because they come from a Muslim background. But if someone who doesn't come from a Muslim background looks and reads this and goes, then that's kind of like, wow, amazing, thanks, it's reflecting. So I'm very excited to see what this brings. But before I get into the verses, I must always explain that I am not an Arabic linguist, nor am I a Quranic scholar. I've not studied the Arabic language outside of school, and I did not study the Quran. In fact, this is my first read through of the Quran, and I am sharing my education journey with you so that you may learn along with me. And if you have a different perspective, please feel free to drop it. This is the whole point of this channel, is education. So the more we talk, the more we discuss, the better that life can be. Cool. And other than that, I say, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. And off we go.
أتى أمر الله فلا تستعجلوه سبحانه وتعالى عما يشركون.
Already we're off to a very interesting start. It says, it has come, not will come. It has come, the command of God. So do not hasten it. Do not bring it forward. Do not make it go faster. It's funny. Sometimes the word by word translation is literal, and sometimes the translation below is literal. Testajiluh is hasten it, not be impatient. Be impatient is like sort of like, this is what they mean. Testajiluh literally means to hurry it up. But be impatient is like, oh, if you're hurrying something up, then you're being impatient. So it's I don't know. It's strange how the meanings sometimes are here correct, sometimes are here correct. It's just wild. But interestingly enough, it says that ata amrullah, the command of God has come. So here, is at hand, is more accurate than it will come, which a lot of times, like specifically when it comes to like prophecies and the future and what's going to happen and what's not going to happen, and is Jesus coming back, is there going to be an apocalypse, is there going to be any sort of religious moment that comes after, as far as we can tell, the Prophet Muhammad, which was 1,450 years ago, peace be upon him, by the way. So everybody's kind of like waiting. And obviously these are, like, they're called prophets because they have prophecies. The Quran's also a prophecy, and there are some things in the Quran that have not happened yet, that talks about what's going to happen. So a lot of times people are waiting for the command of God, waiting for things to happen. But here it says, Ata amrullah, it has come. And then it said, فَلَا تَسْتَعْجِلُوهُ, which means, so do not hasten it. How can it be here if you do not hasten it? If it's here, then you're not hastening it. And that's why I guess the translation says it will come. But this is more accurate. The command of Allah is at hand. And I think this kind of talks about like the perspective of time. And our perspective of time may be a little bit different than, for instance, the Quran's perspective of time. The Quran's perspective on time is that the Quran is timeless, and it applies for the time of the Prophet, and it applies for us today. So when it speaks in the present tense, it could be talking about a moment back then. It could be talking about now. It could be talking about something in the future. And then it says فَلَا تَسْتَعْجِلُوهَا. And this is something, do not be impatient for it. I like the unliteral, what is the opposite of literal? The meaning translation? Anyway, I like that they translated don't hasten it to be don't be impatient, because that is kind of the lesson of what it's saying. And a lot of people are trying to hasten it. Oh, actually, and I saw this interesting video. I am going to diverge because it's a relevant topic for today, about why Israel is doing what it's doing so publicly. And it was like a Chinese professor in a video on Instagram or in a reel. It was very interesting. He's like, listen, they could have done it, without the world seeing. They could have done it secretly. They could have done it subtly. They could have essentially gotten rid of the Palestinian population without letting everybody know that they're committing these hate crimes and atrocities. They could have done it in a lot more subtle ways, in ways that you kind of don't really focus. But the fact that they are doing it publicly, and his theory is because they want the world to hate them, so that it can be the Jews versus the world, and it brings together the apocalypse that is in their scriptures. Essentially, they're trying to hasten this process. And first of all, it's a Chinese professor talking about this. So I'm like, how does this person know what the motives of Israel are? But then second of all, I kind of was watching a video about Netanyahu from time to time. There's a specific rabbi, an infamous rabbi, that kept meeting with Netanyahu, and I don't remember his name specifically, but there are so many videos of the two of them meeting together, and the rabbi keeps telling Netanyahu, like, you're going to do it, you're going to deliver the prophecy, you're going to bring him forward, you're going to make this happen. And it kind of feels like the Chinese professor's onto something, not just because the Chinese professor said it, but because if you look at, I kind of want to find that rabbi's name, but I also don't necessarily want to find that rabbi's name, but he's like very infamous, part of a very specific subgroup. Was living in the States, wasn't even living in Israel. I can't remember his name. I can't remember who he was. But I don't think it's as important. But I do feel like this is exactly what this verse is talking about. Being impatient or hastening. And we've heard this in time and time again with the Quran and other verses where they talk about the disbelievers trying to bring forth the punishment of God. And usually when the messengers come and tell them, by the way, impending doom is coming, all the people go like, oh, well, where's this impending doom? Bring it. You said you're going to bring us impending doom. But ironically, from the Israeli perspective, they're trying to bring the apocalypse, where they think that God will be on their side, which I cannot imagine how anyone in their sane mind, like, what do they think of God, assuming that they can do this to a whole species of, a whole group of humans. They can inflict starvation and denial of rights and stealing of lands and oppression and abuse and lies and hatred. And how could anyone do all that thinking that's what God wants? What do they think God is? Like, that's even in all of the scriptures and all of the stories about the people, God never commanded anyone to be this vile. I don't know. I have to understand it in a different light. There's something I'm missing about why they got to this stage. But what's important is it says the command of God has come, so do not be impatient for it, which is an interesting perspective because it can apply to today, and it can apply to, all right, things have set in motion and the time is now. Or the other perspective is God is saying the time is always now, and that everything is supposed to be happening the way it's supposed to be. And there's a lesson in saying do not try to hasten it. There's a lesson in trying to appreciate the moment that we're in. And I feel like I, for one, can definitely appreciate these quieter moments of my life, because I've had some moments that are heartbreaking and catastrophic and soul shaking, where I was completely destroyed. And that's a lot, you know? So I would appreciate these moments of peace as much as I can. At least peace for me. But obviously there are people suffering in the world, and They want their suffering to end sooner rather than later, which makes a lot of sense as to why they're impatient for it. So lots of things to think about. Just these first 5 words. Ata amrullahi fala tastajilu. The command of God has come, so do not hasten it. Lots of ways of perspective. And then it says, Subhanahu, glorified is He, wa ta'ala, exalted is He. Glorified is He and exalted is He above what they associate. Which, okay, I didn't quite understand the connection between the two, but now that I brought up the story of Israel and what they're hastening, they're trying to hasten, and also like it goes beyond the destruction that they're doing in Gaza at the moment. It also goes to the red cows. Like, listen, if you go down this rabbit hole and you start seeing that they were looking for red cows and that they weren't supposed to be in Jerusalem until the Messiah comes, but then they came to Jerusalem so that they can bring the Messiah sooner. There's like so many stories about them trying to hasten it. And again, it ties back to the question of who do they think God is? And do they really believe that God is going to be okay with all that they're doing? And here it says, glorified is He and exalted is He above what they associate. And here they say associate with Him in worship, which, okay, fine. Maybe they're worshiping something other than God and they're kind of following that madness. And maybe in some sense there is a truth to that. There's always been a kind of discussion and disagreement amongst scholars and people who review that the God that the Jews pray to is different than God, which from our perspective as Muslims, we know that the God of Moses, the God who brought down the Torah, and the God of a lot of Jewish people is God 100%. But maybe there's some truth to it, and that a subsect or from like the people pulling the strings in the background, from like the Zionists, maybe they're worshiping a different version. They're worshiping different prophets. I don't know. Maybe there's a perversion. And it's not hard to think there is a perversion because you see what's happening in Gaza, and like any person with a heart would go, "What the fuck are you guys doing?" And I don't think it is synonymous with Jewish, but I do think it is synonymous with Israeli, which is interesting. But as I said, they're claiming that, at least also from the Chinese perspective, and also about what Netanyahu and the rabbi was talking about, they believe that God is on their side while they're doing all this stuff, and that God will be on their side in the final battle. And here it's saying, Subhanahu wa ta'ala, amma yushrikun. He is exalted and He is glorified above what they associate. So whether what they associate is another God, or whether what they associate, like, because it's yushrikun, it does mean associate, but it can also mean like the way that I want to describe it is if they describe God as supporting genocide, supporting starvation, supporting annexation, supporting stealing of land, supporting lying, then even though they're calling it about God, they're creating another image that is not God, that they believe wants these things. So in that sense, that is a partner to God. That's here is your associate or your partner, because it's not God, but they believe it's the creator. And maybe it's they believe it's God, but they're just describing Him so pervertedly that this phrase makes the most sense. Subhanahu wa ta'ala amma yushrikun. Glorified is He and exalted is He above what they associate. And this can apply also to many things, many terms of many perspectives or many situations. But I feel like because we're talking about tastajilu and hasten it, we're talking about the apocalypse. We're talking about the people that are running the people that are running these wars and trying to make them happen. I thought as I was reading these verses that this was going to be a very short episode. I wasn't going to have much to talk about, but this has been interesting just off the get-go. Very cool.
ينزل الملائكة بالروح من أمره على من يشاء من عباده أن أنذروا أنه لا إله إلا أنا فاتقون.
Sorry, I'm going to tell you why I laughed in a second. I was thinking for a long time, do I want to share this personal anecdote about this verse or not? Because it's tied to a moment where I, quote unquote, lost my sanity. But I think I have to, specifically because it, it says it in such a interesting phrasing. Okay, here we go. He sends down the angels bil-ruhi, which means by spirit. Here they translate it to with the inspiration. And here they've completely missed what bil-ruh means. But it means with spirit. Let me see if I can get it from a translate. Because it's very important, the wording that we... With the spirit. Yeah, it's very, very important that you use the word bil-ruhi. He sends down the angels with the spirit by his command. So he sends down the angels. Oh, here they said with the revelation by his command, with the inspiration, which, I don't think it's revelation or inspiration. It's with spirit, and I'm going to tell you why I think that in a second. By his command, upon whom he wills from his slaves. That's phrase number one. He sends down his angels with the spirit from his command, upon whom he wills from his slaves, which means that's the humans. It could be more than humans. At least it is the humans for sure. All humans and maybe more. Like if there's other species or stuff, like maybe jinn are also considered his slaves. And then it says that warn that he, innahu la ilaha illa, that there is no God except me. So fear me. That, and the grammar here is very interesting. And أنذروا أنه لا إله إلا أنا فاتقوني. That warn that there is no God except me, so fear me. Okay. All right, there's a lot of things to be said in this, but you know what? In for a penny, in for a pound. And I believe that this happened to me anyway, so let's talk about it. 2022, after the death of my partner in March, over the next 6 months, I proceeded to lose my mind. Through also a variety of substance uses. But bear in mind, for many years prior to that, I'd been using substances just as much, if not more, than those specific months. But something happened after the death of my partner that changed. And I slowly descended into madness and losing all sense of reality, let's say. And I hit rock bottom. I hit absolutely rock bottom. My partner obviously was dead. My friends and family weren't talking to me because I was sounding insane. And saying some crazy things, such as, worship me, I'm divine, which is why the phrasing of this is very interesting, because there is no God except me, so fear me. I'm pretty sure it means that anyone who is given the Spirit of God is saying there's no God but God. But it's very interesting the way that this is phrased, because that's exactly what I said. Well, I didn't say there's no God but me, because I did believe in God, and I just believed that I was the messenger of God, and I believed actually I was Jesus, to be honest. Anyway, long story short, madness descending. Partner died, family not talking to me, friends not talking to me, gambled my money away. I'd overstayed my apartment lease by 2 months, but my landlord had let me stay over the lease by 2 months because he knew that my partner passed, and he was taking pity on me. My work was about to fire me. I was obviously very, very distraught, very disturbed, and I didn't have the capacity to process. I had to find an apartment in Amsterdam, which is a nightmare. It's impossible to do. And I didn't have enough money for a down payment. So all the pillars of my life, finances, home, work, friends, family, love, everything was shattered. And then I believed that I was possessed by specifically the archangel Azrael, which is not officially mentioned in the Quran, but we understand it to be the archangel of death. And the reason why I'm bringing this story up is because this verse specifically says he sends down the angels bil ruh, with spirit. He sends down the angel with spirit, upon whom he wills from his slaves. So here he's saying he's sending out the angels with revelation by his command to whomever he wills from the slave, from his servants. And the way that this Quranic verse is being explained by the scholars and the people reading it is that the angels come down with revelations, such as how they came down to Muhammad and they revealed to him the Quran, which is one way of sending it down. And it might be this is exactly what this is talking about, but I'm only sharing from my own personal experience. That I felt the Spirit come within me. Oh, and by the way, after the Spirit came within me, a process and a series of events happened. Madness, me crashing down, being taken to a mental health clinic, and over the span of 5 weeks, every pillar of my life, my friends started talking to me, my family started talking to me, my work put me on sick leave. I got saved up enough money for a month and a half. My girlfriend found me a place to live. My landlord moved me and my stuff out to storage. I had a place for breakfast, lunch, and dinner where all I had to do was think and feel and process about the loss of my partner, and kind of recover from the insanity that I felt. But essentially, after those 5 weeks, I was saved. Now, I'm not telling you that the spirit possessing me absolutely was an angel. I'm just telling you that I believed it was an angel. I had no evidence. I was not a believer. I was not anything. I was a believer at that moment because I thought I was Jesus, which I now understand to be a metaphor for many reasons, but we're going to keep it at that. And I didn't actually know of this verse before. Today was the first time that I read this verse. يُنَزِّلُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ بِالرُّوحِ, which translates to he sends down the angels with spirit. And that's essentially what I felt. I felt the spirit of an angel come within me. And after 5 weeks, I was saved. All the pillars of my life, except for my partner still being dead, obviously, had been fixed. And I was saved. And can I tell you that it was real? Obviously, I can't confirm it. I believe that it was real. I'm certain of it. I remember the day that the spirit left. And when the spirit entered, I was like absolutely certain. Everything was fine. Everything was okay. And when the spirit left, I was like, oh, I'm kind of lost, confused. And I was just back to being me with my own doubts and my own confusion. So it's very interesting that I see Bil-Ruh here. Because here they translate it to with revelation or with inspiration. But it's officially with spirit. Upon whom he wills from his slaves. So this isn't talking about the moment of the prophet and his revelation. This is talking about something that happens multiple times and to multiple people. And then in the second half is that warn that there is no God but God, so fear me. It's such an interesting expression of why it's speaking, why it's not saying that they warn that there is no God but God, so fear him. Why is it all of a sudden talking in the first person? It's very, very interesting. Because that's also one of the things that I said before I was checked in the mental health clinic. I was telling people that obviously that I believed that I was Jesus and that they needed to be. Again, I'm sharing this super personal mental health moment. on the internet. I don't know why, but I feel it feels correct. And I was telling people to essentially worship me, which is wrong, and I don't believe that anymore. And I don't think that, but that was before the spirit possession. After the spirit possession, I did not say that. Before the spirit possession, I was kind of falling down the sanity drawer, and that's also when I thought that I was Jesus. It's very interesting, but I said it in the first person rather than saying it in the third person and saying that you should worship God. And we know that the Spirit was also with Jesus, right? Because in the Quran it also talks about Jesus having the Spirit. And I'm not saying that Jesus was saying worship him, but maybe some of the things that he said could have confused people. Because people were confused after, but we don't know where the confusion comes from. It probably comes from people trying to twist it up. Again, I might be drawing conclusions. This Occam's razor is the simplest. That warn that there is no God but me, so fear me. It's just interesting that the angels will come down by his revelation. The angels will come down by his spirit to any of his slaves, and then it just says, then warn that there is no God but me, so be mindful of me and me. So be mindful of me. It's just such an interesting turn of phrase. But I personally relate to the Spirit of God, the spirit of an angel coming down on me and in me. So, yeah, there's my little crazy story for you. And we're only on verse 2. Spicy. God, help me. I can't believe I'm putting this on the internet, but I was going to eventually put it on the internet anyway. Okay. And then here we get a bunch of verses that kind of sound like things that we've read recently. And this one we specifically talked about in the previous episode with Safa. خلق السماوات والأرض بالحق. He created the heavens and the earth in truth. تعالى عما يشركون. Exalted is he above what they associate. Again, we've talked about above what they associate. Exalted above what they associate earlier today. And created the world, the heavens and the earth in truth. Something that me and Safa discussed many times in the previous episode of chapter Ibrahim, chapter 14, the Surah review series. Oh, did I...
خلق السماوات والأرض بالحق تعالى عما يشركون خلق الإنسان من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين.
He created humankind from a drop of semen, the minute quantity of semen, the smallest sample of semen. He created humans from a semen. And then it says, then behold, he is an opponent that is clear. So I was thinking about this verse quite a lot. And a couple of ideas came to mind. One is that the opponent for humans that is clear is the shaitan, aka the devil, that fell from heaven. The other thought that came to mind was in Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, which talks about the story of Adam and Eve. It talks about Adam and Eve going down to earth and being adversaries for each other. And then, obviously, like the first two sons, Cain and Abel, Qabil wa Habil, one of them kills the other. So the first two sons are an example of clear adversaries to one another, so to speak. And it feels like that's very much humans. And so the clear adversary to each other is also the human versus the human, or the devil versus the devil. And it says, he was created from the quantities of semen. I think that the human being the adversary for the human makes more sense. like here they translate, he created humans from his sperm, dropped them, behold, they openly challenge him. Wrong. They openly challenge him doesn't make sense. فَإِذَا هُوَ خَصِيمٌ مُبِينٌ, then behold, he is an opponent that is clear. They're assuming that it's an opponent to God. I think they're opponents to each other. Also based off of what the Quran says in chapter 2, of that, be sent down to earth and you'll be clear enemies to each other.
والأنعام خلقها لكم فيها دفء ومنافع ومنها تأكلون.
And the cattle, he created them for you, and it has warmth and benefits, and from it you eat, which seems pretty straightforward. Cattle is very direct, has a source of warmth, food, and many other benefits. Now the next verse kind of confused me a little bit. I created cattle for warmth, benefits, and from it you eat. Very clear.
ولكم فيها جمال حين تريحون وحين تسرحون.
And here they translate it in a funny way. It says, and for you in it is beauty when... Here says, when you relax and when you take them out. No, and when you go out. So it says when you relax and when you take them out, but it's translated it to talk about the cattle, and I think it makes more sense because of the next verse. But I translated it at some point here. Tusrihun, you go out to pasture. Turihun, you rest. But they translate it to you bring them in, you rest them, and you take them out to pasture. But I don't think it's talking about them, because, and for you in them is beauty when you relax and when you go out. And I feel like it's more describing the beauty of nature. And the image that comes to mind is Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist, where he was a sheep herder, and there was, like, even when he was roaming with his sheep, he saw beauty and understood the world and lessons, and when he was resting with his sheep, he saw a different type of beauty. And it feels like that. So technically it is talking about the sheep that is resting and the sheep that is going about, but it's also talking about the person that is resting and the person that is taking them out. So not just the cattle themselves. And then this kind of confused me, but that's because I thought it would make more sense about horses and donkeys, but we'll get there in a second.
وتحمل أثقالكم إلى بلد لم تكونوا بالغيه إلا بشق الأنفس إن ربكم لرؤوف رحيم.
And they carry your loads to a land that you could not reach it except with great trouble to yourselves. Indeed, your Lord is the most kind and most merciful. And here I thought, why would cattle be carrying the loads? Shouldn't it be horses and donkeys? But we talk about horses and mules and donkeys in the next verse. So we're definitely not talking about horses and donkeys and mules. Here we're talking about cattle. So I guess this is more the cows and the bulls. Is that what used to kind of pull the caravans? Because horses, I imagine, I don't know, maybe my ignorance is showing here in terms of why cattle used to carry stuff. Because, like, I can't imagine sheep carrying things for long distances, right? I don't think they were used to carry, but like cows and bulls, I can imagine. And then it says, you can't take it unless with a great hardship, and indeed your Lord is the most kind and most merciful. And here it kind of talks about the beauty and the creation of the world that surround us, and how even the animals kind of help us live our lives. There's always the concept of we are the apex predators, but it feels like we're the only creature that could really take advantage of everything in the environment that we're in. That's why we're the apex predator, because we can take advantage of it, not because we evolved beyond like monkeys. But anyway, I'm getting too semantic.
والخيل والبغال والحمير لتركبوها وزينة ويخلق ما لا تعلمون.
Okay, and then we see the horses and the mules and the donkeys so that you may ride them, and for decoration, for adornment, so that they can be pretty. Which is interesting that he puts mules and donkeys in this adornment, because usually you only think of horses as beautiful, but you don't think of mules and donkeys as beautiful, right? As adornment. So it's very interesting. I wonder if there was ever a shift in terms of what we perceive as beautiful. Maybe there was a time when donkeys and mules had a certain beauty to them. Maybe there's something wrong with the way they were perceiving things, or maybe I'm overreading this too much. And it says, and he creates what you do not know. Which is kind of interesting. Talked about cattle, talked about horses, mules, and donkeys. What could he be referring to that he creates what we do not know? Is it about creatures? Is there some sort of creature that we don't necessarily know? Is it elusive? Is it... I'm very curious about this term. Very, very curious.
وعلى الله قصد السبيل ومنها جائر ولو شاء لهداكم أجمعين.
Interesting turn of phrase. And upon God is the direction of the way. And here when we know the way, it's the straight way, the guided path, the clear way, the way that you're supposed to go. But it says, and from it is crooked. Yeah, so here they say straight way and others are deviant. I like the word crooked better, because sometimes the path is straightforward, sometimes the path takes you on a long detour, and for a reason, right? For example, the story of Yusuf always comes to mind because it was so recent, is about the messenger and the prophet. The prophet messenger going on a very wild journey. So was that still the path that it was direct? I don't think so. I feel like Jair, here's we're talking about the ones who don't necessarily... Oh, okay, so if we take the other characters of the story of Yusuf, for example, the wife of the man that took him in as a child and raised him, and then she kind of sexually harassed him, and then she invited all the women to come over, and then she essentially got him thrown into jail. Her path was crooked. She had gone the wrong path. And then when they came to bring him out of jail because he had already done his time and he'd talked about the prophecies, she then told the truth. And she found her way to God, and she found her way to the correct path. And at that point, that enabled him to become the advisor to Egypt and to have all those wealths. So her path was a bit crooked. It wasn't always the direct path. It wasn't always the correct path. She kind of went the wrong way, but eventually she came back to the right path, and she came back to the right path at the right time to do the right thing. And this is why I say from among the proper way is crooked. From it are other ways are deviant. No, it's not other ways. It's from among the way is crooked path. From among the straight path, there is a crooked path. Sometimes people falter, sometimes people go in the wrong direction, and then they come back at the right time, with the right thing, with the right feeling, with the right moment. And if God willed, then he surely would have guided you all. But this kind of talks about what is the purpose of life, and why are we here? Why does suffering exist? Why does wickedness exist? Why are we going through this? God could have created us all as angels, and even the angels themselves in the creation of Adam asked, why would you create a creature that will cause so much bloodshed? God says, I know what you do not know. And it kind of ties back into this topic. And if he willed, he would have guided you all 100%. Cool. Interesting. Wow, it's already 40 minutes and I'm only in 9 verses, but I think we'll go faster soon. Yeah.
هو الذي أنزل من السماء ماء لكم منه شراب ومنه شجر فيه تسيمون.
He's the one that sends down from the heavens, from the sky, water for you so that you may drink of it. From it you drink, and from it trees in which you pasture your cattle. So vegetation in which you pasture your cattle, and by which plants, it doesn't say grow, but we understand grow. Because from the water, some of it you drink, from the water, trees that you can pasture your cattle with. Again, it's talking about the wonder and the mystery and how everything works together, because everything is created بالحق, in truth, in justice.
ينبت لكم به الزرع والزيتون والنخيل والأعناب ومن كل الثمرات إن في ذلك لآية لقوم يتفكرون.
He causes to grow for you the crops and the olives and the date palms and the grapes and of every kind of fruit, and in that is surely a sign for people who reflect. You can see how often the Quran talks about reflection, about thinking, about being critical, and it's very important to think and to reflect, and I think that's kind of the biggest call within Quran. So anyone tells you shouldn't reflect and you should just take my word on what this all means. But he produces various crops. The reason why I said olives the way that way is because olives are such a significant thing to Palestinians. And I take personal pride at that concept. Sure.
وسخر لكم الليل والنهار والشمس والقمر والنجوم مسخرات بأمره إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يعقلون.
Now the phrasing of this is very interesting. He says, and he has subjected, made possible, created for you the night and the day, the sun and the moon. So here it kind of connects these two, the sun, the moon, the night and the day. Again, we covered this in the previous verse. It talks about, we're living in a biological clock, almost biological. We're living in a clock, the sun, us revolving around the sun, and the earth rotating. The earth rotating gives you the days. The earth rotating around itself is the days, around the sun is the years, and the moon rotating around us is the months. It's very interesting, very beautiful. The Arabic calendar months, not the Gregorian calendar. And this kind of makes sense. And then instead of using sakhar for the night, the day, the sun, the moon, and the stars, he gives the stars a separate 3 words. وَالنُّجُومُ مُسَخَّرَاتُ بِأَمْرِهِ. It's still the same verb, sakhar, musakhar, but he puts the stars separately. وَالنُّجُومُ مُسَخَّرَاتُ بِأَمْرِهِ. And the stars have been subjected by his command, which I was kind of thinking, because he later on in the next couple of verses talks about how we use the stars to guide ourselves and find our way. But I feel like there's something more significant to this specific phrase. And the first thing that I thought of was obviously astrology or astronomy. Astrology was the one that I kind of was more interested in, because it's the meaning behind the movement of the stars and the location of the stars and the constellations that we live in. But I don't want to read too much. It's just we see that the stars are given their own specific section. And in that is a verse, is a sign for people that use reason, for people that reflect, people that use reason.
وما ذرأ لكم في الأرض مختلفا ألوانه إن في ذلك لآية لقوم يذكرون.
And whatever he multiplied for you, whatever he subjected, multiplied. Right? We covered this verse, so I can. We'll eventually see the word tasimun in number 10. We already covered number 10. Did not create. Oh, created, yeah. And what he multiplied. Anyway, what he put into the earth for you, that's of varying colors. And what he created for you in the earth, what he's multiplied for you, what he's created for you in the earth of multiplying colors. Indeed, that is a sign for people who remember or who are mindful. Why is it important that all the colors are... And then the thought that came to mind is, what is the rarest color on planet Earth? And blue tends to be the rarest color, but I didn't see much purpose of that or story of that. And he said, in the fact that there are so many colors on the Earth is a sign for those who remember or who are mindful. Yeah, I don't quite understand how the colors are a sign for those who are mindful. But maybe there's something about color and our eyes, for our ability to see color. I don't know.
وهو الذي سخر البحر لتأكلوا منه لحما طريا وتستخرجوا منه حلية تلبسونها وترى الفلك مواخر فيه ولتبتغوا من فضله ولعلكم تشكرون.
He's the one who made it possible for you the sea and subjected the sea to you, so that you may eat from it meat that is fresh, meat that is tender. Tender is more correct than fresh. I don't know why they're saying it's fresh. And so they may bring forth from it ornaments, trinkets, things that are pretty, that you may wear it. This is also talking about the pearls, and I also grew up in Bahrain. There was a lot of pearl diving in Bahrain, it was a very big trade for the country before they discovered oil. Ornaments that you wear, and you see the ships plowing through it. Now, in the previous couple of chapters, it said وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمْ الْفَلَكَ, so it subjected the ships to move. But now here you see the ships plowing through it, so that you may seek from his bounty, and that you may be grateful. It's also like, it reminded me of the fact that what is halal, for example, what is allowed to eat within the Muslim culture, aside from things that have been killed with the name of God, so halal meat, I guess also kosher meat would also work. I don't know if they kill it. I would imagine kosher meat is killed in the name of God, if I'm not mistaken. But I'll have to look that up. But anyway, seafood specifically is good for you to eat, regardless of where you go. And why is that? Because people don't have to kill the fish. This was taught to me by Safa, actually. She told me this yesterday. And that the fish, once they leave their environments, they die. Therefore, it's a natural process of life. And it's not like sacrificed for anything or not sacrificed for anything. So it's very interesting that seafood is allowed for all those who observe the Muslim diet.
وألقى في الأرض رواسي أن تميد بكم وأنهارا وسبلا لعلكم تهتدون.
Now here's an interesting part, and I have to kind of validate it, but it says, and he cast in the earth firm mountains that make you firm, so it doesn't. أن تميد بكم. Lest it should shake with you. Let me actually do that. To sway with you. And the reason why I believe that it says, so it does not shake with you, even though it does not shake, it says, so that it does sway with you. أن تميد بكم. But I've read somewhere that the places with mountains have less earthquakes, but I'd have to double check that system, because if that was the case, then it's kind of impressive that 1,400 years ago and 1,450 years ago it was an example given of how the mountains reduce earthquakes, and that places that are mountainous don't have as many earthquakes because the mountains are kind of keeping your ground firm. أن تميد بكم وألقى في الأرض رواسي أن تميد بكم. If it was so it does not shake with you, it should be أن لا تميد بكم. But here it's talking about I'm just trying to think of it. Maybe we're understanding it incorrectly. Maybe it's not about not moving the not about the earthquakes, but there's something about the mountains so that it moves. It moves us in a way, or shakes us, or moves. I'm very curious. Maybe we misunderstood this verse so far. But if the verses of what I'm talking about, where the mountains do cause less earthquakes, and that's something that's also interesting. Anyway, it says, in rivers and roads so that you may be guided. Now, here's an interesting perspective, because it says roads and pathways. And I was like, so God created the pathways? And humans then just built upon them? Like, how did the humans know where to build pathways and roads? And in some places, like I thought about mountainous regions, it's always like an interesting path. And the idea then comes, are humans then building upon the paths that were intended by God? That's a very curious perspective. لعلكم تهتدون, so that you may be guided, so that you may find your way. The rivers make sense, because the rivers obviously go in a specific direction or created by God. But so that you may be guided. It's interesting.
وعلامات وبالنجم هم يهتدون.
And landmarks, and by the stars, so that they may guide themselves. Also by the landmarks. So the stars, so that they may find themselves, is exactly what I was talking about. It talks about it in the next verses. And landmarks, it's like, and kind of like, it's actually, and the word is, and signs, like landmarks are essentially like a giant, oh, you are here, oh, you are here, this is where you go, this is how you find here. Honestly, with the huge vastness of the earth, it's amazing to me that people traveled so far before planes, trains, and automobiles. How did wild. Anyway, so essentially, a lot of this is describing the universe and describing the world and the earth around us.
أفمن يخلق كمن لا يخلق أفلا تذكرون.
So, all of this is to draw an example and tell you what God has created, and the stars and the moons and the cattle and the sun and and the day and the night and the roads and the ships and everything that we see all around us. So is the one who creates the same as the one who does not? Then do you not remember? Are you not mindful? And here, we've seen this comparison drawn before, but it seems to be a bit more clearer now. And this was something that I thought about against people who worship gods or anything other than God. And it's like, yeah, all those ideas that you have of those deities, do they create a fraction of what God has created? And that's kind of the concept. Someone had created everything, and that person, the creator God, is he in comparison to anything that does not create? It's kind of setting the importance of God.
وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَغَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ.
It's quite somber. It says, and if you count the favors of the blessings of God, you will not be able to enumerate them all, not be able to number them all. This is something that we talked about also in yesterday's episode. Yeah. The next verse is the next half of the verse says, indeed, God is oft forgiving and most merciful. Which is the reason why this is somber, is because you're not able to count the blessings that God has given you: the food, the shelter, the home, the ability to do anything. There's so many things to be grateful, and that even though you can't appreciate and can't be thankful, God is oft forgiving and oft most merciful. It's kind of somber, but like, you're not going to be able to do it, but God will still have mercy upon you.
وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ مَا تُسِرُّونَ وَمَا تُعْلِنُونَ.
And God knows what you conceal and what you reveal. Yeah. 100%.
وَالَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ لَا يَخْلُقُونَ شَيْئًا وَهُمْ يُخْلَقُونَ.
Now, this verse and the next verse I want to kind of cover in one go. And those who invoke, وَالَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونَ اللَّهِ, and those they invoke from besides God, لا يخلقون they do not create anything, but they themselves are created. But those that they invoke besides God cannot create anything, but they themselves are created. And the next verse,
أَمْوَاتٌ غَيْرُ أَحْيَاءٍ وَمَا يَشْعُرُونَ أَيَّانَ يُبْعَثُونَ.
Okay, I'm going to keep those verses side by side because it's very interesting. Those that they invoke besides God, they do not create anything, but they themselves are created. They are dead. They are not alive. So we're talking about the things that they worship. They're dead. They're not alive. They do not create anything, but they are created. And then it says, وَمَا يَشْعُرُونَ أَيَّانَ يَبْعَثُونَ, and they do not perceive when they will be resurrected. Which is very peculiar. The translation has said, and not even knowing when their followers will be resurrected, is not the grammar of this tense. For me, it's talking about that which they worship besides God. It's talking about the things they worship besides God. They do not create anything, and they are created. They're dead. They're not alive. And they do not perceive when they will be resurrected. Meaning, the things that they worship and they pray to are potentially humans that have passed. And we see this in a couple times of like previous people that have died, that became saints, that become martyrs, that become gods in a story that eventually translates. So that maybe they are the spirits of humans that of old. Because if we're talking about the spirits of humans that are old, that kind of stayed for whatever reason, because of belief, because of legend, because of how they were created, this context fits. It says those whom they invoke besides God, they do not create anything, but they are created, also fits. They're dead, but they are not alive, also fits. And they do not know when they will be resurrected, because if they're dead, they will be resurrected, right? And they will face judgment. So it's possible to think that they used to be humans. It's also possible that the things that they worship used to be a different species, like jinn. But it's possible that they were humans as well. So I just found this very interesting. وَمَا يَشْعُرُونَ أَيَّانَ يُبْعَثُونَ. They do not perceive when they will be resurrected. Very, very interesting.
إلهكم إله واحد فالذين لا يؤمنون بالآخرة قلوبهم منكرة وهم مستكبرون.
Your God is one God, but those who do not believe in the hereafter, their hearts are in denial. I like that word better. Are in denial. And they are arrogant. And this is a very key issue within the Quran. Hey Mohab, welcome to the channel. Hi, how's it going? Lurk. Thanks for joining. I appreciate. Thank you for lurking. Love you. Arrogance tends to be the big sin that we see in the Quran. And we see this from the very beginning. Even before Adam and Eve bit from the fruit and disobeyed God's command, the first to disobey God's command, as far as we can tell from the Quranic verses, and the first to sin was Iblis. And he essentially said, why would I bow down to Adam when he's made of mud and I'm made of fire? Arrogance. It was, I'm better than him. Why would I bow down to him? Arrogance was the very first recorded, as far as we can tell, sin. There might have been another sin before it, but from the Quranic perspective, arrogance tends to be the one, the problem. And everything that comes as a result of humans committing all the atrocities, whatever it is, arrogance. And that's why sometimes people say pride is the most dangerous sin, because pride is the one that kind of leads to all the rest. If you lust over somebody and you rape them, for example, you think that you are better than them, you deserve more than them, therefore you can use their body for your pleasure. Wrath, you think that you are doing better than the person is doing something wrong or negative, or they're worse than you or they're weaker than you, you're casting judge upon them. I'm better than you, therefore I have to tell you that you're wrong. Envy, why should you get this thing when I deserve it? It should belong to me. I am more worthy of this thing than you are. Sloth, why should I work when you should be working? I shouldn't be working. I should be sitting. Greed, I need all the things for me because I deserve all the things. So arrogance and pride is the sin and the way that all the rest of the sins come from, and the way that we all kind of fall. And the people who are in the hereafter, who deny in the hereafter, are arrogant.
لا جرم أن الله يعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون إنه لا يحب المستكبرين.
And yeah, here it says, there's no doubt that God knows what they conceal and what they reveal. Indeed, he does not love the arrogant ones. And here it's kind of tying. I was wondering why he was talking about what they conceal and what they reveal, and what's it tie. And in the previous verse, it said that those who don't believe in the hereafter, and their hearts are in denial, and they are arrogant. So there's something about not believing in the hereafter, not believing that there will be judgment, not believing that there will be not believing in the justice of the world. This is why it comes down to the concept of خلقنا الأرض والسماوات بالحق. We've created the heavens and the earth. And I feel like Safa is a bit more correct in justice. Because if you believe it's injustice, then you believe everything is recorded and everything will be reviewed, and therefore your actions matter. And therefore, if you think that you are better than consequence and that you can do whatever you want, then you are arrogant. And that is what is concealed versus what they reveal. And indeed, he does not love those who are arrogant. So it all kind of ties in together with this verse.
وإذا قيل لهم ماذا أنزل ربكم قالوا أساطير الأولين.
This kind of makes me sad because this reminds me a lot of my friends. But anyway, and when you said to them, what has your Lord sent down? They said the tales, the legends of the firsts. And a lot of my friends have said this throughout the years, that they're just stories, that they're just legends. In fact, that's the reason why I walked away from Islam when I was in my 20s, because my college roommate at the time, was a good friend of mine, had told me, if you just look at them, they're just stories. And at the time, I didn't have enough belief, and I was like, you know what? Maybe you're right. But just as I had believed that they were just stories, and I am here today as a believer before you, I cannot judge my friends, for I do not know who will become a believer and who will not. And even though they have said that there's the tales of old, you never know when they're going to be inspired.
ليحملوا أوزارهم كاملة يوم القيامة ومن أوزار الذين يضلونهم بغير علم ألا ساء ما يزرون.
All right, we see the rule of three here. The three, azr is the verb. We see it in their own burdens, the burdens of those, and what they bear. So this is talking about the burdens, but let's describe it word by word. They may bear and they may carry the burdens, their own burdens in full on the day of judgment, the day of resurrection, because we're being raised, and from the burdens of those whom misled them without any knowledge. So I always thought this was kind of a bit unfair, that you're carrying your own burden and you're carrying the burden of somebody else. Like, that sounds not fair. But it kind of like reflects in the world today. And if somebody tells you to bully somebody else and to hurt somebody else and punish them, and if you take that on board and say, okay, I need to punish and hurt that person, then you are taking the dysfunction of somebody else on, and you are also committing your own crime. Like, you are taking responsibility for your own action, and you are taking. And the first thought that came to mind was the soldiers of Nazi Germany, because they claimed that, this is, how do we know? How are we supposed to know that this wasn't the thing? You have your own responsibility in it, and you have the responsibility of those who put it upon you. It is the fault of the hierarchy of the Nazis, but it's also the fault of the people who executed it. And also not just the soldiers, but the citizens. The citizens that believed in this ideology, the citizens that allowed Jews to be persecuted, homosexuals to be persecuted, anyone who's non-Nazi to be persecuted. Everybody has their own responsibility to fight against the oppression, to fight against the evil. And that's why, even though you might say that, for example, we take the example of Israel, the people within Israel, all they knew is the doctrine of which they are seeped in, that does not lift up their responsibility upon themselves, just like it doesn't lift up the responsibility of the Nazi soldier. You can't commit atrocities and say somebody else made me do it and not take responsibility for it. And not only will you take responsibility for it, but you also take responsibility for what the person told you to do, because you did what they told you to do. You took it on board. You used your body to enact their will. So you are in a way carrying their burden along with your burden, because you chose to act in their path. And that's why what we do matters, and that's why free will matters. ألا ساء ما يزرون. Ow. That was interesting. My arm just started hurting me. This is almost like a question. Is it not so evil what they bear? And I feel like it's more of a question. Evil is indeed what they bear. Yeah. Allah means, yeah, unquestionably, is it not evil what they bear? And is it not terrible what they bear? Which reminds me of a book that I read in school, because of high school. It said the things that they carried, and it was talking about the soldiers of the Vietnam War, and that the things that they carried were so much more than the physical things that they carried, but the emotional weight and the bear. And it's such a beautiful analogy. Essentially, all soldiers that are kind of spreading death and devastation and destruction in the name of their country, bro, you are also what's at fault. But it's just a shame what you're carrying. I pity them more than I'm angry at them, because what they're carrying is heavy.
قد مكر الذين من قبلهم فأتى الله بنيانهم من القواعد فخر عليهم السقف من فوقهم وأتاهم العذاب من حيث لا يشعرون.
Verily had schemed those who came from before them, so God came to their building. God came to their building from the foundations, and it fell upon them the roof. The roof fell upon them. So God came to them from the base of their foundations, the base of their buildings, and I think here this is a metaphorical structure. Talking about the people that kind of hold it up, the structures, the ideology, the belief, the foundation, like for instance Nazi Germany, for instance the Romans, the pharaohs, kind of gets to, well, the pharaohs might be slightly different, but get to the base of these ideologies, these people, these plans, and the roof fell upon from above them, and the roof fell from above them as he came from the roots. And he came to them with a torment from where they did not perceive. He made them fall and crash and fail from where they did not perceive. And this is a warning for all those who transgress.
ثم يوم القيامة يخزيهم ويقول أين شركائي الذين كنتم تشاقون فيهم قال الذين أوتوا العلم إن الخزي اليوم والسوء على الكافرين.
I'm going to tell you an interesting thought that I had after I explain this verse. It says, and then on the day of resurrection, he will disgrace them and say, where are the partners, my partners that you used to oppose? الذين كنتم تشاقون فيه. Where are my partners, my associates that you used to oppose in it? They used to oppose the believers in. And this question is very like, is this what God's going to say on the day of resurrection? Oh, where them gods at? Where them crazies at? Where are the things that you used to worship? Huh? You said this was coming. Where are they? Where are the jokes? Sorry. Where are the deities? It just felt like such a provocative, sarcastic question. Like a very sassy, like God's like, everything done happened, like, where's the people that you said was there, that you said was going to support you, you said all that jazz. And And then it says something interesting. It says, and then it will say, those who were given the knowledge. I wonder who that refers to. Those gifted with knowledge will say. Here they're saying those gifted with knowledge will say, but here it says those who were given the knowledge. And like, even the disbelievers were usually given the knowledge before they were destroyed, right? But they chose not to believe in it. So does it not... Technically it means that they came to knowledge. Here it can be they were given knowledge, or that they came to knowledge. So maybe those who came to the true understanding. And what did they say? They say, indeed, the disgrace on the day, in al-khizya al-yawma, the disgrace today, this day, and the evil is upon the disbelievers.
الذين تتوفاهم الملائكة ظالمي أنفسهم فألقوا السلم ما كنا نعمل من سوء بلى إن الله عليم بما كنتم تعملون.
Okay, all right, here's a very interesting expression. The disbelievers, those whom the angels take them in death while they are wronging themselves. So they would offer in submission that we were not doing anything evil. We weren't doing anything wrong. We weren't doing anything evil. Nay, indeed, God knows about what you used to do. So several things are being said here. Those that the angel sees them while they're wronging themselves, and then they offer full submission, or they offer full submission, and they say we didn't do any evil, and then here we assume that the angels will say, because it says, no, indeed, God knows about what you used to do. So God knows where you're happening. Several things come up to me in this verse. One, the angels that sees them while they're doing wrong. I'm not going to talk about what the personal moment that I think of, but I'm going to talk about when you die, you don't go to heaven or hell. Only at the day of judgment do you go to heaven and hell, right? And on the day of judgment, the people aren't saying they offer in submission what they used to do from any evil, because on the day of judgment they will see everything that they have done before them, and they won't make this argument. And then it says, no, God knows what you used to do. So this feels like it's before judgment is passed out, before that day. Even though the previous verse was talking about on the day, the disgrace will be on the disbelievers. So we are talking about the day of judgment. And is that only when the angels take them in death? Maybe they remain in their graves until the angels come and take them in their death. But I'm trying to think of the context. Is it like they won't go to heaven or hell before judgment is passed, and they'll know judgment is passed because they've reviewed their whole life? Or maybe the judgment is passed and then they review their whole life? At what point? And then because like in chapter Ibrahim, we were talking about how their eyes were wide. And again, I said that I don't feel like it was talking about the day of judgment. I felt like it was talking about the calamities that the messengers were telling them about. Because here it's saying that they're not scared, but they're saying that, oh, we didn't do anything wrong. But then they were told God knows what they do. And again, it's about what they announce and what they don't announce, what they reveal and what they don't reveal. It's very Interesting. So the order of events is a bit confusing to me. Do the angels take them after judgment is passed, after they have seen their lies, if they haven't seen their lies, after they understand, if they don't understand? Or is this talking about a specific subset of humans that immediately go to hell upon death because they were so terrible in their lives that they're not even waiting for judgment? That it was so obvious that they're going to hell that they go directly. I don't know. Lots of ideas. And yeah, the final verse of today is
فادخلوا أبواب جهنم خالدين فيها فلبئس مثوى المتكبرين.
Yeah, to tie the verse down perfectly. So enter the gates of hell, you're abiding in it forever, and surely is wretched the abode of the arrogant. Again, emphasizing that arrogant is the important phrase. And what a terrible place it is for the arrogant, and that they are going to hell. I do feel like it is talking about the wicked that are specifically misleading humans to believe in something other than God. But when they die, the angels come and seize them. And those are the specific arrogance. And even on the day of judgment, even though we're talking about them on the day of judgment, that on the day of judgment, people will say that disgrace on this day is upon the disbelievers. Which the disbelievers? Specifically, the ones that were collected early. But would it not be also, I don't know, maybe it's just talking about the time of judgment at the end of times, and I'm just misunderstanding it, and this is all just after. But I don't understand why they would question it if their judgment has been passed, or if they had read what they had been doing. I don't know. Yeah, this was a lot longer of an episode than I thought it was going to be. But hey, some people appreciate long episodes. Thank you for watching. As usual, we always end with Sadaqallahu al-Ali al-Azim. I appreciate you for watching. Thank you very much. Sadaqallahu al-Ali al-Azim. Ma salama. I love you guys, and catch you guys tomorrow. Bye.